What's up, everyone? It is the Real Ones Canes podcast. The man next to me up top, if you're watching virtually, is Cam Underwood, managing editor, State of the U. Go check out stateoftheu.com. Simply the best website to get your Miami Hurricanes information. Follow Cam on X, on Twitter at Underwood Sports. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. I'm the Beast, Brian London. And the man down below us needs no introduction if you are a Miami Hurricanes fan. If you're watching us, you can see that is Joaquin Gonzalez, former University of Miami offensive lineman, and now a Cane dad. His kid is on the team, is a freshman, and we're all old now, but
it makes you feel old when you say it that way, brother.
Yeah, exactly. Joaquin, thanks for joining us and taking this time, my friend.
Thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So Miami is back in the title spotlight, back handling all this stuff in the lead up to the biggest game that's been played in 22 years. And this one's not in California. It's not in Arizona. This one's right here in South Florida at Hard Rock Stadium. Just as a guy that's been through this, that went through this, that won a title and is now going through it vicariously through your son and all of his buds on the team. What's going through your mind right now?
You know, it's been surreal. You know, you say this is the biggest game. I think we've been saying that for the last, 3 weeks. You know, this is obviously the biggest game that, that we've played, for the program in I think, probably 2003, 2004 was the last year where there was, consequential games that really did matter and made a difference, whether you were going to advance into postseason play or whatnot. So yeah, absolutely. It's surreal, Beast, to be honest. I kind of wake up and I'm like, I can't believe I'm living this. It's been such a long drought, endless amounts of coaches, players, athletic directors. There's still some mainstays in the building, guys that have been there from back in the day. So it does feel surreal. I can't believe we're back, and it's almost like, hey, nobody told us that we were going to be back. We're kind of used to like the Dolphin fans. We're used to sucking for so long that, it's hard to realize that, man, we're at the pinnacle right now. And I think when you look at the way that we've done it, obviously, during the season, having those 2 losses, that was kind of like, oh my God, here we go again. But to be able to, sneak into the college football playoff and be playing our best football at the end of the year, and the way that we've done it, it kind of cements, the type of players and the attitude that Mario has brought to the program.
Well, tell us about Mario Cristobal. He's a guy, obviously, real well, right? Because he was a GA back in your day, and a guy that obviously, we'll get to the Columbus aspect of it all, right? And obviously your son is on the team, so your son gets to be with him every day. But just your thoughts on the job that Mario has done and how he's done it.
Mario and his brother Lou were an inspiration for me to play football at the University of Miami. I always bled green and orange. I always went to all the games in the OB, and when I had an opportunity to play college football, there was no question where I wanted to go. Even when it wasn't popular, come to Miami, and Butch Davis was dealing with his, the scholarships were down to, I think they had taken away 35 scholarships.
Yep.
But Mario and Lou were the guys that kind of like I idolized growing up and going to Columbus, and they're the reason that I wanted to go to UM and run out of the smoke. So to have them early in my career as an assistant coach, I still, look at Mario as one of the most influential coaches that I had, because he taught me a technique that I was able to not only understand, but perfect. And it was one of the reasons why, me as a technically undersized offensive lineman early on in my career at UM, my freshman year and my sophomore year, I was able to hold on to that starting spot and start 49 straight games at the University of Miami. And that's because of the technique of that whole entire touches, punches, and kind of like that whole jiu-jitsu mentality with your hands. And, not to get too technical here, but as an offensive line, you were always taught to shoot both of your hands at the same time. Mario was the first coach ever in my career that told me you have 2 hands that they can be independent of each other. And if you get this hand swatted, you have this hand to be able to replace it quicker by the time you get to replace this one. And it's funny because I see, watching Ohio State, watching Ole Miss, and watching Bain go to work on some of these offensive linemen. It's still crazy to me that we're here in 2025, 2026 now, that, that offensive linemen are still shooting both of their hands. And, they're kind of dipping, and they're playing right into Bain and Messidor's hands. So to see that and see how advanced and how good he was at teaching me that, and seeing him go through his career of going and finally becoming a coach at the University of Miami, no longer grad assistant, and then moving on to, FIU, Alabama. And I followed him through his whole career, and to have him back here, it's something I think that a lot of Mario supporters dreamt of for a very long time. And for a moment in time there, it felt like it would never happen, right? Whoever thought that he would have left Oregon to come to Miami with the success that he was having over there. But man, are we glad to have him. And I cannot wait to win this national championship on Monday. And, not only revel in the fact that we're back in the Natty, but even within our own fan base, there's been a lot of guys and a lot of people that have really kind of like, I wouldn't say not supported Mario, but really questioned, some of his abilities, and whether it's deservingly so or not deservingly so. Look, at the end of the day, the results is what you're going to be measured by. And, being here and being able to win it the way that we have with the line of scrimmage, yeah, I think it's reminiscent of all of the other 5 championships that we won. You look at that 01 team, yeah, we had great talent, but look at our O-line and our D-line and the guys that went to the professional level from those O-lines and D-lines. Look back, at 91, 89, 80, 83, 87. So you look at those championship teams, and yeah, they had, your playmakers, but man, those playmakers are nothing if you're not controlling the line of scrimmage.
So Joaquin, let me ask you this question, which is, there's a lot of the reporters, we were on Cam and I were paying attention yesterday to Mario's press conference, and a lot of the guys from Indiana wanted to get Mario into a conversation about playing Mendoza, and Mario played with Mendoza's dad at Columbus and all this stuff. And Mario really didn't want to get into the conversation. He's laser focused, man. He don't want to talk about nothing but here, 1-0, we're going to go play. He doesn't want to get into all the side stories and all that stuff. But you can, as a Columbus grad yourself, as someone from the heart of Miami, Cuban, what does it mean to you to have, Mario and a million guys that are on this Kane staff that are from Columbus and Cuban and Mendoza and all that stuff? What does this mean?
I'll just touch on real quick from the coaching staff. Obviously, we talked about Mario, but Alex Mirabal was my offensive line coach in high school. He's the guy that made me love to play offensive line. I'll go kill for that guy right now. That's how much that guy meant to me and still means to me in terms of just the unbelievable human that he is. But when you look at Fernando, I mean, my son was Fernando's backup and his brother, his backup, through high school. It wasn't until his senior year that Vinny got to play, and because he was backing up both of those guys, and they're wonderful kids and they're awesome. And I have been rooting for Fernando the whole entire year because it is an unbelievable story, something that I could relate to as, born from Cuban exiles. And, the story resonates so much with Miami. I think that why everybody's in love with him, and you hear him talk, and it's just such a great story. But my love stopped as soon as that Oregon-Indiana game was over, because now it's time to business. And my allegiance is with the Miami Hurricanes, and I hope we kick out of them. And that doesn't mean that I don't love his story and I associate with him, but reality's reality, brother. It's time to roll up your sleeves and go after him. And truth be told, we're going to see what happens on Monday night, and they're a very good team, but so are we. And have they faced the level of violence that's going to be coming at them on Monday night? I don't know. We're going to find out.
So speaking of finding out about the game on Monday night, we know clearly, and you kind of mentioned this about yourself being a little bit of an undersized offensive lineman, but there's a clear size disparity up front for Miami's offensive line versus Indiana's defensive line. How do you, in Indiana, they want to slant, they want to try to get upfield into those gaps. How can and will Miami's offensive line address that to, try to have success in the running game and offensively overall?
Well, I think that when you look at, the gameplay of our offensive line, the ability for them to not only down block, but get up to the second level. One of the things that a lot of people kind of don't mention about Miami's offensive line, which is they're extremely oversized, but they are so athletic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at those guys' footwork, and there's a reason why you have probably, 2 first-round guys and probably a second-round guy on that offensive line. So to me, it's just a matter of sticking with the same exact game plan that we've had, from an offensive line perspective. From a defensive line perspective, I mean, I thought it was clearly evident when you look at how we played Texas A&M from a defensive line front, and then how we played Ohio State, very different than how we played Ole Miss. A lot of people fail to realize that Trinidad Chambliss, I mean, he averaged over 75, 78 yards a carry, or not a carry, a game running the ball for Ole Miss. I think he had 11 or 12 yards rushing. And if you look at our bookends, Mesidor and Bain, they weren't really overrunning the quarterback. They were taking 3 steps and really trying to create a short edge and squeezing, that pocket and making Chambliss kind of like beat us with his arm. And he's a great quarterback, but you saw the versatility of our offensive line saying, no, we're going to, we're going to try to sack you, but more important is keeping you contained and in the pocket. And, Mario touched on this in one of his interviews, because in the very last play of the game, somebody broke contain on our defensive front, on the right side of our defense, left side. And that's how Chambliss was able to get out and be able to have a clean throw for the Hail Mary. But if you look at that, we were washed inside, and that really hadn't happened all game because of our game plan. So I'm excited because, Fernando's a less mobile quarterback than Chambliss, and I think we could get back to pinning our ears back and just getting after him. He does have a way better arm. He does have a way better arsenal of receivers. But I think we're up for the challenge. And like I said, I don't think they have faced the violence that these guys are going to bring on Monday night. And we've seen, I mean, that's one of the things, Brian. I mean, you've been with me for 20 some odd years, and getting back in tune with Miami and seeing this year the way that our defense runs around and the level of nastiness that comes with every shot, man, it makes you a fan of UM again. It makes you fall in love and be like, these guys have something different that's been missing in our program for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, to hear them talk about the violence, like that's part of their mantra is violence.
Yes,
it is definitely refreshing, but also you understand how it works. On the other side, Joaquin, Miami's offensive line is huge. I mean, huge. And your thoughts as you see these guys, if you've been out to practice or, when you're at games and you're thinking.
First thing I'll tell you is I wouldn't be able to sniff the field today.
These guys, man. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
They are intimidating. So the last practice that I went to, I was with Brett. This was months ago, that we just happened to coincide in the building. And we're looking around and, Francis is as big as he is. I mean, Marquise Bell is just like, Jesus Christ, bro. Yeah. It's like, to me, I think he's about the same height as Brian McKinney, but he just looks bigger than Brian, He just looks meaner, he just his disposition is different. So, I think a lot of, their physical attributes are their own, but I think that the offensive line, I know the offensive line has taken on the attitude of Alex Mirabal. And if you've ever had the pleasure to sit down and talk to Alex Mirabal and have him explain football to you and how the game is played, specifically how offensive line is played, the first thing that goes through your mind as he's talking is like, your inner voice goes, how the F is this 5'2", 5'3" guy talking like this about offensive line play? It's amazing how well he understands, the ability to work as a team, but at the same time individualize your responsibility. And what I mean by that if you've ever played offensive line, is a lot of your movement happens, a lot of the technique that you're going to use and how your first steps are going to be are as the defensive is moving. So all of a sudden you go from working with a tight end or possibly working with your guard to all of a sudden being solo on a 5 technique or on a 3 technique, and having the ability from one stance to be able to do 360 degrees of the steps that you need to take to be able to take care of your responsibility. You see that day in and day out at every single game that we have played. You see Mayagoa pulling, you see the guard pulling, you see our center. I mean, again, the flexibility, and it goes back to the athletic ability. They're not only big, they're not only mean, but these guys can dance, brother.
I mean, and not to mention they like to grind on that run game with Fletcher and Marty Brown behind them. They love to grind on that run game.
100%, 100%, man. And it's great to see. I mean, like I told you, it's like when everybody loves, do I like the girl with the big boobs on Instagram? Yeah, I do. I do. But I enjoy, the video of like a nice steak also, you know what I'm saying? So I guess the correlation that I'm trying to make is that the way that we are controlling games, I mean, shoot, we were 42 minutes of time of possession in Ole Miss versus 18, 4 drop picks, couldn't capitalize on some of the scores. But the way that we are controlling the line of scrimmage, look at the run game against Ohio State, the run game against Texas A&M. That allows you, when you control the line of scrimmage on both sides, on the offense and on the defense, it really gives you a lot of opportunity to overcome some mistakes and some errors and some miscapitalization of the opportunities, because you know that you're controlling that line of scrimmage. And the only way that you do that is by having the dogs, right, and making sure that the dogs understand the task at hand. So back to our offensive line, they're not only big, because we've had big players before, Yaqub Abdul-Mateen, Robert Sampson, you name it. There's been big guys through here, God rest his soul, Brown, I forget his first name. He was like the first Brian McKinney. We've had big guys before, but they haven't been smart enough to be dynamic on the offensive line, which you need to be. In other words, you go out there and it's like, oh no, I got the 5 technique. Yeah, you may be walking towards the line and you have the 5 technique, but by the time the ball is snapped, you're doing a double with the guard with a 3 technique back up to the backside linebacker, because that's what the defense is showing you. These guys are extremely smart. Something that is, that a lot of people don't talk about. These guys are, they're not only the big guys and maulers, but these guys have the flexibility and understand the game well enough that they can ad-lib as they go onto the offensive line, as the defense is shifting. And that's something that we haven't had here in a very long time. I mean, I would venture to say that we haven't had it in a lot of different years. And we finally have an offensive line unit that, brother, they're smart and they take pride in their job.
Yeah, and that pride is obviously going to come into play this week, or, in the championship game against Indiana. They've been one of the best teams at stopping the run. But in terms of Miami stopping Indiana's run game, which has actually been the foundation of their offense, I want to ask you, so put back on your practice jersey, put back on your helmet. You're going out on the green tree, and you're preparing for a game against Ruben Bain, Justin Scott, Akeem Mesdor. How do you, Joaquin Gonzalez, national champion offensive lineman, what do you do to mitigate their impact on the other side of the ball?
So I'll give you prime examples, like when we faced Florida State or we played Syracuse that had Dwight Freeney, and we played marquee matchups that highlighted specific ends or defensive tackles that were, game changers. And the way that we would get ready is literally through individual period and after practice, we would spend time working one-on-one their technique with other defensive linemen that we would get. And I remember, like, for example, when we were facing Dwight Freeney, Brian and I stayed back there was a guy named John Square. I don't know if you remember him, Brian.
Yeah.
He was really fast and really quirky guy that could really spin. And, man, we must have gotten probably, 25, 30 reps after practice was done to really kind of mimic his technique. And not only that, we would bring him into the meeting. So we would do a lot of one-on-one film sessions just ourselves. And I know these guys are doing the same exact thing. Look, we're playing Indiana, but what it really boils down to is you're playing the guy in front of you. And if you control the guy in front of you, and if you have success with a guy that's lined up in front of you, and 11 guys have that attitude, we're going to end up being successful. And you got to, I'll never forget, and Brian, I'm sure that you probably saw this in the O-line room. If you ever walked by there or whatnot, Kehoe would kind of put the starting offensive line, like their number, their 6'2", 275, their hometown, and then he would put their backups. So you kind of get to know who that person is, and you literally would spend the whole week, besides your responsibilities in the team atmosphere as an offensive line unit, but then you would go on your own time and start breaking down film on the guy or the guys that you were going to face. And then as we got good, we would get our scout team guys to watch the film with us because, hey, I need you to show me this. Not when I'm expecting it. It's very easy for you to, okay, give me some spin moves. Yeah, you already know the spin move's coming. So, but if you could get them in there and in the team settings, when you're doing blitz drill, when you're doing inside run, if they could give you the look that you asked them to give you, it makes you better for it. And then understanding, again, for every move, there's a counter move. And some of those counter moves, put you in a better or worse spot in terms of leverage. So understanding what you're going to counter with when it happens. Okay, hey, listen, when that spin comes, this is a technique that I'm going to use. If you're able to get that done by the time you get to the field and you see it, it really sets you up for success. And that's the way that I played football. I mean, all the way even through the NFL. When I faced Strahan my very first year as a rookie, that was the year that he won, the all-time sack leader. And, here I am as a rookie offensive tackle for the Cleveland Browns, and I'm facing Strahan in New York. And he came out in the paper saying that he was going to get all sorts of sack on this rookie from Miami. And I ended up giving 0 sacks. Now, I probably spent, probably 30, 40 hours breaking down film on this guy and figuring out when he would do the move and how I was going to counter. And the very first time I saw it in the game that I trusted my technique and I did it, I'm like, oh, I got this guy figured out. And I did. I got more and more comfortable as the game went on. And I think you'll see that with these guys that early on, it's like, okay, you're going to see who throws the punches, but how they could settle into the game is just as important as how you come out.
Joaquin, thanks for spending so much time with us. We appreciate it. And I know, you're always a favorite among the fan base. There's no doubt about it. If you take a step back and look at this game holistically, what needs to happen on both sides of the football for Miami to win their 6th national championship?
Number one thing, control the ball, right? Make sure no turnovers. I mean, the statistics are there. If you turn the ball over once, I think the other team has like a 63% chance of winning the game. So I think controlling the ball, making sure that we secure the ball, that's number one. That's key. I think the second one, the ones that are obvious are going to take care of themselves. We know that we do a good job controlling the line of scrimmage. We don't have to say that. But I think secondly is our special teams, right? The ability to get punts off, really change the positive field in our favor. I think, in a game of this magnitude where you're playing a very sound team, and Indiana is a very sound team, they don't make a lot of mistakes. For the large part in our playoff run, we hadn't made a lot of mistakes. I think Ole Miss was an anomaly in terms of the amount of mental mistakes that we made, jumping off sides, lining up in the neutral zone, things of that nature that we hadn't seen that. So I think we need to get back to locking in and not making mistakes, that are completely avoidable, right? A face mask here, a face mask there. I'm not talking about those. Those are going to happen in the heat of the battle. But securing the ball, making sure that there's no turnovers, our, special teams, making sure that we're able to secure the ball there and not have any, muffs or any things of that nature where it leads to a complete reverse of the field position. And then just not making stupid mistakes on penalties. I think those 3 things are, if you take care of that, the playbook of Miami completely is wide open, and we have the dogs to be able to go out and win this game.
I love that. That breakdown is great. And you talked about obviously being ourselves and doing what we do, and that being the key to success. For you, obviously, you were a captain of this team. Everyone know. If you don't know who this is the Joaquin that Ed Reed referred to as, say, Joaquin said dominate in that halftime speech. And we've seen moments of like that Ed Reed speech at Florida State. We've seen, even in this run, Ruben Bain, who doesn't talk a lot, stepping up in front of the team. The moment, at halftime between him and CeCe Mawinoa before the last play at Texas A&M, all of those things really kind of propelled this team forward. So the thing I want to end with you, Captain Joaquin Gonzalez, give me your halftime speech to this team to propel us, or the pregame speech to propel us to a victory. Take it away.
Yeah, I think that, what I would say if I'm at, on Sunday night, our last team meal as we get ready to play, the following day, I'd get up in front of the team and just tell them, hey, look, the hay's in the barn, technique. There's no film you can watch at this point forward. There's no technique that you can learn. Everything and all of the tools that you have to be successful, you have already on you. This is just going to come down to what your mindset is walking into that game. And what that mindset is that I don't care what the technique is. I don't care what the down and distance is. I am going to beat the out of the guy in front of me. I'm going to do my job to the best of my abilities and make sure that when that whistle blows, if all 11 guys are thinking that way and making sure that whatever their responsibility is, that they are crushing it and think nothing else. You don't have to go do anybody else's job. Focus on that and give all of your effort to that. When that freaking bell tolls 0-0, you're going to look up and we're going to be victorious. And that's what I would really focus our guys on, is just that. Hey, there's nothing like, now it's time to play. Now it's time to just go out there and get after it. And I will tell you this, it turns into a bar brawl. And what I mean by that is there's going to come a point in the game where we're going to punch them and they're going to punch right back. And when that game gets tight, a lot of people kind of try to, let's change it up. Lean into it and punch right back and punch right back. This is a slugfest, man. That's the way that you got to treat it. When you play big games, when you play big teams, people think that you got to do something different. No, you just got to do what you do, but just do it with a ferocious tenacity. Man, it's hard to articulate because it gets me in a mindset where the best way that I could kind of explain it to you guys is like, imagine if I'm going to punch, I'm going to punch this glass with my hand. Is it going to hurt? Yeah. But when I get in that mindset, I don't give a damn. And I'm going to punch it not to break the glass, to get that glass to the other side of the world, because I'm going to come at it with everything that I got. So that's the intensity and again, that wasn't just for big games. That's the way that I played. And that's the way that I saw big time Miami guys play. And so look, I get chills, man, because I got to slow down, and that next guy that buys some tires is going to
Hey, speaking of tires,
you're going to get an invoice. He's going to get a pass it, man.
Speaking of tires, you could own 2 or 3 more tire companies if you guys had NIL back in your day.
Oh man, tell me about it. I heard you guys are going to start flipping some of that bill. So do you want me to send you where to send the money at? I'll send you my routing number and account number.
Yeah, exactly. Joaquin Gonzalez, always the best. And thank you so much for your time, not only today, but over the last 20-something years. You're just simply the best of the best. And hopefully we will talk again after a victorious Miami wins their 6th national championship. Thank you,
awesome, brother. Great to be with you guys, Cam and Brian. All the best, brother.
All right. Thanks a lot, so much. Appreciate it. And thanks for watching the Real Ones Canes podcast. Peace.